All right. Well, we've been on a journey through the book of Hebrews, and I'm not going to recap all the chapters that we were in, but I believe it was Ivan last week who brought up a good point concerning the Sabbath, because remember the church that we're dealing with here they're referred to as the Hebrews because a lot of them are probably Jewish believers. Some of them are maybe very new converts. Some are maybe kind of on the edge of conversion. It was a very kind of a structurally weak church. And so whoever the author of Hebrews is writing them to, reinforce to them the importance of Christ's superiority. So we've talked about his superiority over the angels. We've talked about his superiority over Moses, which would have been two very, very important factors for the Jewish people. And then we began talking, was it last week, talking about the rest that God promises. For those that were disobedient, he says they will not have rest. He will not give them rest, but for those who are faithful and obedient, he will give rest. So that got us kind of on the subject of the Sabbath and kind of why we worship on Sunday for the most part and not on Saturday. So that's kind of the topic that I thought we would just take a little rabbit trail on. Sabbath versus the Lord's Day. And so that's where we're at. So as usual, let's do a couple of questions just to get us thinking a little bit. The first question is, what did God need to rest after creation? And if not, why did he do it? You're firm about that. Okay, so God is not creating today.
No, he's already created.
Okay. That might technically be debatable.
Well, how you believe in evolution?
Well, no, I don't believe in evolution, but when yes, Neen.
When a new person is formed in the mother's womb, is that creating?
Well, as a matter of fact, it is. Some have taught that God made all the human souls on the sixth day, and so they're just kind of up there waiting to be born. But actually, the Greek does not teach that. Okay, the implication seems to be that when the sperm and the egg come together and there's that point of conception, it seems to be a new soul is being created the way the Greek reads. So God technically might still be in the creation business. And we know that he is going to make a new heaven, right, one day, and a new earth. So, yeah. But we don't have all the answers, do we? We're just, Okay, so I like that. He did it as an example for us, and he did it to let us know that he was finished. Very good. What does the word Sabbath mean? I heard Saturday, yes. You say it means 7, you say it means the day of rest. Okay.
We took it as a day of worship. Now, I don't know if that has nothing to do with what the Greeks say or anything like that, but that's the way I was raised. That's just Sabbath is the day that you worship, you rest, and you worship the Lord.
Right. Well, Sabbath means the seventh day. The seventh day is called the Sabbath, okay? And the Sabbath is, we don't usually use that word. We use the word Saturday. So if you say Sabbath, it's Saturday, or I think I told you this before, but when I used to live up in North Carolina, In that particular area, almost everybody was either Baptist or they were Seventh-day Adventist. And so I can remember going to the doctor one time, and here I am, a young guy, 16 years old, I must have been 17 or 18. But anyway, I was a young guy. I go to the doctor's office, and there was all the doctors were Seventh-day Adventists. In fact, you might maybe notice that most of the hospitals now are being all bought up by the Seventh-day Adventists. It's they probably nationally have more hospitals than anybody else. Well, anyway, the nurse looks at me and says, "Well, what day do you worship your Sabbath?" Well, I didn't even know what that word meant. I didn't go to church. I wasn't a church person. So, in all honesty, I just said to her, I said, the only Sabbath I ever heard of was Black Sabbath. And she was like, totally freaked out. But anyway, yeah. Okay. Is the observance of the Lord's Day or the Sabbath debate still a thing today? I mean, is it still a big issue? Yeah, most of you are saying yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm one of these people where I mean 99% of the time, I can literally live and let live. I don't force myself on anybody, but then I don't want them forcing their beliefs on me. And when people become very outwardly pushy about their beliefs, then you're involved, whether you like it or not, because they're pushing it on you. I just don't like things crammed down my throat. I mean, I don't know about you all, but that's just the way I am. So, yeah, I think they make a big deal out of it where we would not make that big of a deal out of it, okay? Why does this debate spark so much passion among Sabbatarians? Why do you think it's such a big deal to them? Where to us, we don't even really talk about it. Normally, most of the time, we wouldn't even talk about this. They can rest. Who's stopping them from resting? Yeah, but I'm not stopping them, Paul.
I think it's probably more the fact that, what is the really holy day? And that's where the conflict gets in, is based on the Sabbath being the holy day.
Mm-hmm.
And which one is it,
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more to it than that.
Based on the Bible, they want to follow the word of God, and the word of God says that the Sabbath day is Saturday, so they want to follow that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you look at their name, the Seventh-day Adventist, the Adventist part has to do with not so much the first Advent, but the second Advent, the coming of Christ. So again, it's the Seventh-day Adventist. And it is that Sabbath issue which is the pinnacle of all their doctrine. Now, a lot of their doctrine is great, okay? It's very much like a Baptist church, okay? And I'm going to talk more about that in a little while. But some of it is, I don't believe it's correct, okay? Just to be nice. And the whole issue with them is the Sabbath. If you took that away from them, everything else, their entire belief system would fall apart. Okay. Yeah.
Friday, it's sundown on Friday, isn't it?
Yes, right, technically it is Friday.
Until when?
Yeah, it's sunset to sunset, right? Yeah. Well, the Jewish way of looking at it, right? Was the Sabbath changed? And if so, who changed it?
That is strange. We used to not have grocery stores not be open. The only thing that was probably open was a gas station.
Right.
And used to no stores, everything was closed on Sunday.
Right, but now let's really think about what the question is asking. Maybe I should have worded this differently. Was the Sabbath changed? What does Sabbath mean? It means the seventh day means Saturday. So has somebody changed? Yeah, because you can't change the day of the week, can you? Right, I mean,
Did God start creation on Sunday or Monday?
he started on day one.
What day was it?
Day one in this case would have been Sunday, right? If you look at a traditional calendar, the calendar begins with Sunday and ends with Saturday. And a lot of calendars nowadays have changed that. They've made Monday the first day. Yeah. I don't know if they do that if it's like a work calendar or whatever, but they have changed that now. Yeah. I mean, you can't change the day of the week, okay? So the real answer is nobody really changed it, but yeah, yes.
Technically, Jesus changed it. The first original time that people started worshiping on Sunday was because they were worshiping because Sunday was the day that God, Jesus arose from the dead.
Right, but no. The Sabbath hasn't changed. We worship on Sunday, but because Saturday was not changed to Sunday. Well, we're not even Jews to begin with, most of you in here, so it doesn't even apply. But we worship on Sunday. That is not the Sabbath. No one changed the Sabbath. When a Christian says, my Sabbath is Sunday, that is a wrong statement. It's a dumb statement, so don't ever do that. Because if you do that in front of a Seventh-day Adventist, they already think you're dumb. Okay? My job here is to make sure that nobody ever thinks you're dumb when it comes to the Bible. Because all of you have been going to church, many of you have been going to church longer than I've been going to church, and everyone here is a theologian. That means you study the Word of God, right? Every one of you, right? Don't you study the Word of God? I'm getting on a soapbox right now, but someone told me to listen to this one guy on TV. They said, "Oh, he's so good. You got to listen to him. You know, he's so good." So I thought, okay, I'll get such high praise. I'll listen to this guy. So I turn the TV on. I'm listening to this guy. The very first thing out of his mouth is, "Well, I'm no theologian, but." Well, why do you have a show teaching the Bible?
Maybe he doesn't know what a theologian is.
Well, he shouldn't be on TV teaching the Bible, you know.
There's a lot of them on there that shouldn't be on TV.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. You know. And so right away I turned it off because I'm not going to listen to the guy if he's not a theologian. We're all theologians. The question is, are you going to be a good theologian or are you going to be a bad theologian? Okay, so we all have a responsibility to learn and grow. And I told you all this before, and everyone I've told acts shocked when I say this. We are being recorded, aren't we? I think we are. Trelane left the room. A friend of mine, a pastor friend of mine, who shall be nameless, when he does a sermon with his program, it'll tell him what grade level his sermon is. And so what he'll do is he'll go back through it over and over and over again. Well, he'll dummy it down until it hits the 6th grade level. And that's what he preaches. And he does that because people like it. Yeah, but they're always going to be at the 6th grade level when it comes to the Bible, okay? And we shouldn't be stagnant in the 6th grade in the Bible, you know, because we have to be held accountable before God, right? So we're here to learn. We're here to learn, and believe me, when you learn, I learn as well. So yeah, the Sabbath was not changed, okay? Does the day we worship God corporately matter at all? Why or why not? So I didn't use the word Sabbath, did I? Corporate worship. Does the day matter?
We can worship God every
Yeah, shouldn't we? Shouldn't we really be worshiping God every day? Now, of course, we're not going to meet corporately every day. Obviously, we're not going to all meet together, but and I think ideally the early church met Sunday. We're going to get into that, but yeah. Yeah, because once we say it has to be a certain day, now we become legalistic. And didn't Jesus come to fulfill the law? Don't we have Christian liberty? Not liberty to sin, but we do have Christian liberty. You know, some people I know, they don't want to have a Christmas tree. Well, I tell people that I can buy a Christmas tree and I can decorate it with lights and make it real pretty, and I can dance around it naked if I want, as long as I don't worship the tree. Amen? So, I mean, we have Christian liberty. You know, I said to somebody one time, hey, did you read that book? Oh, no, I would never read that book. Well, why not? Are you afraid? You're a child of God. Why would you be afraid for, right? Why would you be afraid to read that book, you know? Who's going to knock God off the throne? Anybody? You know, greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world, right? We don't got to be afraid of anything. Is Seventh-day Adventism a cult, and what brings you to that conclusion? I have a lot of books on cults because I had to take classes in cults, and yeah, I gave you one of them. Yeah, but what's really interesting is about 50% of the books do not have the Seventh-day Adventists in it, and the other 50% do. I'll get into that. I'll tell you. I think it depends. I think every denomination has saved people, and every denomination has people that are not. And so we'll get into that. Signs of the times. Yeah, when I was a young guy there going to Bible college, I got an invite to go to a Revelation conference held by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I thought, well, that's not going to hurt me just to go there and check it out, you know. In fact, my parents were with me, and one of my friends was with me, so we went there to go check it out. It was like a 5-day, 5-night, 6-night conference. And the first half of the conference was great. I mean, he walked you right through the 6-day creation of Genesis, and you know, walked you right through and established the foundation. I mean, really beautiful, and the structure and the, you know, the whole coming of, you know, the one that'll crush the head of the serpent. And then probably in the middle of the conference is really when he gave his gospel presentation. And he gave the most beautiful, the most eloquent gospel presentation I've ever heard. I mean, he had everybody right in the palm of his hands, okay? And then after that, when you get kind of in toward the end of the conference, the last day or so, that's when he starts getting into the doctrines of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Satan will always hook you with the truth and then reel you in with a lie. And that's when he starts pushing their doctrines on you. And I have to admit, I was a little shaken. Not that my faith was shaken, but I was a little bit shaken because I thought, you know what, if what he's saying is the truth, I've got to follow the truth, right? I got to be man enough to say, hey, this is not right, this is right. You know, that's the way I am. I'm really convicted that you've got to always follow the truth, right? I would say probably the next 3 nights I couldn't sleep. I had to pull all my books out from school and Bibles and study and restudy, and must have studied for 3 nights in a row because, you know, work during the day, right? And came up to the conclusion they were wrong. Okay? Yes? No.
What percent of them you have down there? And I'm from Northeast Arkansas, you'd have to be hard to find Seventh-day Adventists in our area.
There is, around here, there's like at least one per town, but in North Carolina, they were everywhere.
Don't they follow another book written by Alice Wider?
Ellen G. White, yeah. That's another story. Okay? But they have a Bible like ours, okay, basically put.
So they should be believing in Jesus, just like we do.
So you'd think, right? So we're going to get into that. In fact, I have Mark Finley's book, The Almost Forgotten Day. And a very good book. It's got a lot of history in it. In fact, a lot of it's very well written, very good history, okay? But again, there is that problem where they start introducing their doctrine. And I've taught many times hermeneutics, and remember, you can never just pull Scripture out of context. You've always got to read it within the context. What is the text actually saying? And if you read everything that they say in context, it's wrong. I won't say everything is wrong, but a lot of it's wrong, okay? So Saturday or Sunday. So since the earliest days of the church, Jewish Christians tended to worship on Saturdays, whereas Gentile Christians tended to worship on Sundays. The issue between Saturday or Sunday worship has been a point of contention ever since. And I think it's worse today than ever before. I really do. Today, most Catholics and Protestants tend to worship on Sunday, also known as the Lord's Day, albeit they may offer Saturday services, okay? So you'll find that everywhere where people have different services, different times of the week. Whereas churches today that adhere to Sabbatarianism include the Seventh-day Adventists, they're probably the main one. To a much lesser degree, there's not many of them left, the Seventh-day Baptists. I think most of them became Seventh-day Adventists, so there's hardly any of them left. And the Church of God Seventh Day. Okay? So, but mainly it's the Seventh-day Adventist. They're the main ones. And there's a lot of controversy, big conferences about the topic. The internet is just filled with all kinds of things. What kind of gripes me is, I don't like them saying, well, if you're a Sunday worshiper that you were deceived by Satan. I'm not saying they're deceived by Satan. Why should they say I'm deceived by Satan? You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that's a good Christian thing to do. Of course, they got other little articles that they write and, points of view. Here's one of their little things. Prove that God rested on Sunday, that God blessed Sunday, that God sanctified Sunday, that God put Sunday in His law. Well, I don't have to prove that. He didn't do that, right? He did Saturday, not Sunday. I'm not arguing the Sabbath is the Sabbath, right? And again, just so many different conferences that they do on that particular topic. And it is the epicenter of their doctrine. If you take that away, everything else falls apart. And of course, they say that if you're not into God's Sabbath, well, then you've taken the number of the beast even. Well, we haven't taken the number of the beast, believe me, okay. If you've taken the number of the beast, you've taken the number of the beast. You're not going to be deceived, okay? You'll know it. So since the Sabbatarians are by far the minority, let us first examine their argument, okay? So they claim that God instituted the Sabbath at creation, okay? They claim that God affirmed the Sabbath in the law. Okay. They claim that Christ never abolished the law. Okay. They say that Christ's custom was to attend synagogue on the Sabbath. Well, that's true. The apostles' custom was also to attend synagogue on the Sabbath. That's true as well. They also argue that most Christians worshipped on the Sabbath until the Roman Catholic Church changed the day. So we're going to just kind of I'm just going to kind of walk you through those points. Hopefully I got them in the right order, okay? So let's talk about creation. Genesis 2:1. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Now we do know that God created the universe and everything in it in 6 literal days. I'm a literist. Is that what it's called, literist? Creation. Well, I'm a creation. I believe in the 6-day creation, okay? And God rested on the 6th day. He blessed it. You know, I mean, I think the principle there is, you know, we've got to rest, right? If you worked hard 6 days, then you deserve a rest. I mean, you look at all that you've done for the week, you know, got nothing to be ashamed of, right? You know, you say it is good, you know, you bless it. You know, he made it holy, okay? What does holy mean? Heard somebody whisper it. Yeah, holy means sanctified or set apart. So he made that seventh day apart or different or other than the other days, right? All right. Sabbatarians claim that this proves that God had instituted the Sabbath 2,000 years before Moses. Well, I do see honestly where he blessed the day and made it holy. Okay, he made it different. I don't know if that constitutes, though, being instituted. Okay, that's a leap. That's an assumption right there, okay? Where does it say he instituted it? It doesn't say that. However, there is no biblical record of Sabbath keeping before the children of Israel left the land of Egypt. Not even an implication that any form of Sabbath keeping was practiced from the time of Adam to the time of Moses. So I think that's kind of a leap of speculation on their part. And that's one thing when you look at Scripture, maybe you've got an idea, maybe it sounds really good to you, or maybe you heard somebody say something and it sounds really good to you, but does that always mean that it's true? No. Remember when you're building up a thesis to a group of people, let's say you're a Bible teacher, you're teaching Sunday school or preaching or doing anything, you know, you want to establish a baseline of truth. You know, you want to give that truth out, and you've got to be able to back it up. If you can't back it up, then even if it's true, you still have to be able to back up what you say, right? If you've been to college, many of you know that you have to, when you do some kind of a report, you don't ever say, in my opinion. You give your thesis statement one way, or you give your thesis statement the other way, and then you give your arguments back and forth, and then you've got to give what? 10 references? And not just 10 any old references, but 10 references from academic sources, including 3 trade journals and this and this and this and all, you know. So, yeah, you got to know what you're doing. You got to do it the right way. So let's look at the law. God instituted the law for the Israelites, and the 4th commandment states in Exodus 20 and verse 8, "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your manservant or maidservant, nor your animals, nor the alien within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." Okay? Now, that almost does sound like they're connected, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Because over here he's giving them the law, and down here, we see the creation here. It sounds like they're connected. Okay. The Sabbatarian will be quick to point out that most of the Ten Commandments begin with the same words, "Thou shalt not." But the fourth commandment starts with "remember" in verse 11, right? So where's the word "remember"? Oh, yeah, up here. Okay. So he starts off with "remember." So this is something you're supposed to remember. So is he talking about creation? Is that what he's talking about? That's what it sounds like at first, right? But don't always say context, right? Read it in context. So Moses reiterated the Ten Commandments to the next generation of Israelites in Deuteronomy 5, beginning in verse 12. Then in verse 15, Moses gave the reason that God gave the Sabbath to the nation of Israel. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. Doesn't mention creation, does it? He says you have to remember this because you were slaves and God's the one who rescued you, right? So God's blessing and sanctification of the Sabbath in the garden might have been a foreshadowing of things to come. But it wasn't what they were to remember. They were to remember their slavery. The Israelites were not to remember creation. They were to remember their Egyptian slavery and the Lord's blessing of deliverance. And this makes sense when we consider a person under Sabbath law could not leave his home on the Sabbath. A person under Sabbath law could not build a fire. A person under Sabbath law could not cause anyone else to work. A person breaking the Sabbath law was put to death. Now, does this sound like seventh day rest, or does it sound more like slavery? Sounds like slavery, doesn't it? Yeah. But the Seventh-day Adventists don't see that. Immutability. What does immutability mean without looking? We just talked about this the other day. Anybody remember the word immutability? Unchanging, yes. The Sabbatarian will be quick to point out that God cannot change, and if that's true, then neither can his word, right? I think we all agree to that. Jesus stated in Matthew 5, in verse 17, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. I tell you the truth, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished." However, while God is immutable, there are many things about God that we don't know. And so periodically he dispenses more information to us, and we call that progressive revelation. So it's not that God changes, it's just that as time goes on, we learn more stuff, don't we? We learn more about God. If you remember when Moses delivered the Israelites, they didn't even know what God's name was. So then Moses said, well, God, who do I say sent me? And then what did God say? He said, tell them that, I am that I am sent you. Okay, so again, they didn't even know God's name. So as time went on, they learned more and more and more about God. Progressive revelation. Therefore, what was in the Old Testament concealed is in the New Testament revealed. That sounds smart, doesn't it? I wish I would have come up with that, but I didn't. I don't know who did, but yeah. Okay. Exodus 24, verse 8. Moses took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant which the Lord has made with you, according to all these words." And then Christ's death, burial, and resurrection was the transition that took place between the old and new covenants. So now in Luke 22:20, likewise, he also took the cup after supper, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for you." The old covenant with the animal sacrifices was for the Jew, and then the new covenant with Christ's sacrifice, the one perfect all-in-all sacrifice, right, was for both Jew and Gentile. So, obviously, there's two different covenants here, okay? Last time I checked, when you have a new covenant, it's because Jesus fulfilled the old covenant, or we're speaking here prophetically, it's right before he went to the cross, obviously, but still, he fulfilled the old covenant and he gave the new covenant, right? Observance. The word Sunday is not mentioned in the Bible, but the phrase first day is mentioned 8 times in the New Testament and 6 times in the Gospels specific to the resurrection. And there's the examples right there if you're taking notes, if you want to write that down. The book of Acts identifies the day the early church met. Acts 20 and verse 7. Now on the first day of the week, what did I say? The first day of the week, right? And what day is that? Sunday, yeah. I get that mixed up too because sometimes people say have a good weekend. So in my brain, I'm thinking Saturday, Sunday, and then you think, oh, we're back to the grind Monday, but no, actually, it's the first day of the week, right? So now on the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul, ready to depart the next day, spoke to them and continued his message until midnight, okay? Now, he couldn't leave the day before because it was the first day of the week. That was the day they worshiped, right, and rested. So he was leaving the next day. And this is not a reference to just eating. There's a couple of different references we could go to that I didn't want to sit there and hash that out too much, but this particular reference to breaking bread is a reference to what we call communion, right? Communion, and of course, his giving his message. They were worshiping on that day. Another time was when Paul encouraged the church to take up a love offering. 1 Corinthians 16, this is verses 1 and 2. Now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given orders to the church of Galatia, so you must do also. On the first day of the week, let each one of you lay something aside, storing up as he may prosper, that there be no collections when I come. So what he's saying, every time you guys get together, take up this offering, so when I come, I can get the money. You don't have to do it when I get there. And what it was to do is it was to help the poor people in Jerusalem that were experiencing a drought at the time and people were starving to death. So they were taking up a love offering to help them out. And again, what was it the first day of the week? Sunday. Now, understandably, Jesus' custom was to attend a synagogue on the Sabbath because he was a Jew. Kind of goes that, he was usually invited to speak as the guest rabbi. Hey, you know what? If I got invited to speak at a synagogue on Saturday, I would do it too. Preach Jesus, right? Right.
Why do you look at everybody to speak your off purpose? They didn't agree with anything that you did or said. And did Jesus observe the Jewish Sabbath in the way that the Jews did? Did he not heal on the Sabbath, their Sabbath? Did he not preach on their Sabbath? Did he observe any of the Sabbath? In other words, Saturday, was it a special day for him?
Well, you got to remember that's the day they worshiped and rested as well, like we do normally on Sunday, okay?
I don't remember Jesus' time, but he said, well, on Tuesday he went so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
Or Thursday or Friday or Saturday or Sunday. That tells you that he fed the multitude, he did this, he healed this one and that one.
Right.
But never said that he observe, that he observed Saturday as a holy day.
Well, I mean, he went. It says he went to synagogue, which was his custom. So he obviously did that on a regular basis. When he came in, he would have put probably the hood over his head, as every other rabbi would have done. He would have, when it was his time to stand up, would have stood up behind the lectern. That's usually when everybody would stand up for the reading of God's word. Then whoever was the scroll attendant from that day, would give him the scroll to read and then would take it back. And then the rabbi then would usually sit down and expound upon the message. And everybody was astonished because he didn't preach the way the others did. They said, this man speaks with authority. What the other rabbis would do is they would just sit there and quote other rabbis. Well, Rabbi Gamaliel believes this about the text, but Rabbi, Shlomo thinks this about the text. And, so they'd sit there and just give different opinions of what different rabbis thought. But Jesus said, you have heard, thou shalt not commit adultery, but I say unto you that if you're looking at another woman to lust, you've already committed adultery in your heart. Wow, that was revolutionary. So yeah, he observed the God-given laws because he's God. But did he observe all the man-made laws? No. I wouldn't do that either. It's easy for me to say, right? When they bring you out back and beat you up. Understandably, okay, did I already read that? Yeah, okay. After the book of Acts, there's only one other mention of the Sabbath. So, they don't even talk about it anymore. Colossians 2, again, this is 16 and 17. So let no one judge you in food or in drink, or regarding a festival or a new moon or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. So we shouldn't be judgmental, and that's why I kind of had that live and let live attitude, and I don't think the Seventh-day Adventists should say we're all going to hell, because of this, that, or the other. Paul downplayed Sabbath keeping in Romans 14:5 through 6b. He went on here to say, one person esteems one day above another esteems every day alike. Let each be fully convinced in his own mind. He who observes the day observes it to the Lord, and he who does not observe the day to the Lord, he does not observe it. So any day you should observe to the Lord, right? It should be a Jesus day every day, right? We like to sing, this is the day that the Lord has made. We think of him on the cross. But really, this is the day. Tomorrow's gone, tomorrow may never come. So this is the day the Lord has made. Let us now rejoice and be glad in it and use it, because one day we won't be able to do that anymore, will we? John stated in Revelation 1:10, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. Which probably means that, here he is in exile on the island of Patmos, and he's worshiping God, and he was probably like in deep prayer when he says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. And then all of a sudden the whole ceiling opened up, and looked into heaven, right? So the writings of the early church fathers, known as the Didache, confirmed the church continued to meet on Sunday after the close of the New Testament period. So we've talked about the Didache before too. These are almost like the apostles of the apostles. These are the early church father age, okay? So you have the apostolic age, then you have the early church father age, and that's when the Didache was written, during that period. MacArthur says the first day of the week is to be observed by all the disciples of Christ, and it is a sign between Christ and them. Bless you. Matthew Henry's commentary. The word Sabbath, while de-emphasized in the Gospels, is used only because the transition to the first day of the week had not yet occurred, and there is no reference at all to the seventh day. 4 interesting points to consider, and I think I wrote so much I kind of lost my points as I was going, so hopefully we'll find them. Whenever Christ appeared in his resurrected form and the day is mentioned, it is always the first day of the week. Number 2, the only times the Sabbath is mentioned from Acts through Revelation, did I read that right? The only time the Sabbath is mentioned from Acts through Revelation, the occasion is Jewish evangelism, and the setting is usually a synagogue, okay? So again, Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 9:20, "To the Jews I became as a Jew that I might win Jews." The Apostle Paul did not go to the synagogue to fellowship, but to convict and to save the lost, as did the other apostles. So we see that repeatedly. And after taking some food, he regained his strength. Saul spent several days with the disciples in Damascus. At once he began to preach in the synagogues that Jesus is the Son of God. Acts 13:5, when they arrived at Salamis, they proclaimed the word of God in the Jewish synagogues. John was with them as their helper. Acts 17, beginning in verse 1. When they had passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where there was a Jewish synagogue. As his custom was, Paul went into the synagogue, and on 3 Sabbath days he reasoned with them from the Scriptures, explaining and proving that the Christ had to suffer and rise from the dead. "This Jesus I am proclaiming to you is the Christ," he said. Some of the Jews were persuaded and joined Paul and Silas, as did a large number of God-fearing Greeks and not a few prominent women. Acts 17:16, while Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue with the Jews and the God-fearing Greeks, as well as in the marketplace, day by day with those who happened to be there. Okay? So the only time they're going there on the Sabbath in the synagogue is to preach Jesus, right? To the Jews. But they themselves were worshiping on the first day. Okay. We're really running out of time. You know what? We got to stop, but I'm going to finish this. It's not real long, but I'm going to finish this next week, and I got some good stuff here on the end. I think you'll like it, okay? And then we'll go right